A sound pierced the silence of the ruined city, a cry, faint and trembling, but alive. It echoed through the empty streets, carried by the cold wind that swept between shattered towers. Her name was Lyra, once a medic in the Human Alliance. Now, just another survivor drifting through what used to be a city. Every breath she took was borrowed, every sunrise undeserved. She had learned to live with silence, to speak only to ghosts and the wind that howled through the ruins. But that cry lingered, insistent, pulling her through the wreckage. Lyra followed the sound. The ground was soft with dust and ash, and the sky above glowed with the pale shimmer of dying stars. She found the source near the remains of a crashed ship, its metal twisted. Smoke still rising, the crying came from inside. She forced the hatch open, coughing as the bitter smell of burnt circuits and blood filled her lungs. And there, between shards of glass and the flicker of failing lights, was a small figure curled in the corner. It was a child, not human. Its skin shimmered faintly violet, and thin golden veins pulsed beneath its translucent surface. Its eyes glowed softly, like two tiny suns dimming with every breath. Lyra froze. The wars between humans and the Zareth had taught her to hate this sight, to fear it, to kill it. But the child was crying. Her hands trembled. She reached out, hesitated, then touched its shoulder. For a moment, warmth spread through her palm, and light rippled across the child's skin. It looked at her, eyes full of pain and trust. She whispered, "You're hurt. I won't let them find you." Outside, distant voices echoed, search patrols sweeping the ruins. She shut off her communicator. If they found the child, they would end its life without hesitation. And if they found her with it, they would end hers too. Lyra wrapped the small alien in a torn thermal cloth and carried it into the cold night. Her heart pounded with every step. The world was quiet again, but not empty. She hid in a half-collapsed shelter, laid the child on a makeshift bed, and examined its wounds. The human med gel hissed and evaporated on contact. The Zareth body rejected it. The child whimpered. Lyra leaned closer. "It's okay. You'll be all right." It reached out and touched her wrist. In an instant, flashes of memory surged into her mind. Cities of light, alien skies, the sound of a mother singing. Lyra gasped and pulled her hand back, trembling. She looked at the child again. "You showed me what happened to you. Didn't you?" The child blinked slowly. A faint glow returned to its veins. Lyra sat beside it, staring at the flickering shadows. "They told us you were monsters. That mercy was weakness. But they never saw you cry." The child's hand brushed her sleeve again. Lyra let it stay there. For the first time in years, she felt something other than survival. She felt a purpose. She whispered, "I'll keep you safe. No matter what they say, no matter who comes." Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon. Somewhere in the distance, engines roared, the sound of hunters drawing near. Lyra pulled the child closer, eyes fixed on the storm above. The galaxy had taken everything from her. But tonight, it had given her something back. Hope, and she wasn't going to lose it again. The night stretched endlessly above the ruins, and Lyra didn't sleep. She sat by the dying fire, watching the alien child breathe, its small chest rising and falling with fragile rhythm. Every few minutes, it murmured something in its language, a soft hum, almost like a melody. Lyra whispered, "You're going to need a name." The child blinked but said nothing. Its golden eyes reflected the faint light. She smiled weakly. "How about Sira?" The child repeated it in a soft, broken accent. "Sira?" Lyra's throat tightened. "Yes, Sira." When dawn came, she wrapped Sira in her cloak and stepped outside. Smoke from the nearby city still climbed into the pale sky. Drones buzzed faintly above the horizon, scanning for survivors or fugitives. She knew she couldn't stay. Someone would come looking, and if the Alliance patrols found Sira, they wouldn't hesitate. Lyra walked through the ruins for hours, avoiding open ground. The streets were full of metal skeletons, machines long dead, vehicles fused with walls. She remembered when this place had been full of laughter and neon. Now only silence remained. By midday, Sira had stopped crying. She watched everything with wide, unblinking eyes. The child pointed to a cracked billboard showing a faded image of a human family. "Home?" she asked, her voice trembling. Lyra hesitated. Not anymore. That night, they found shelter in what had once been a communications outpost. Dust covered the consoles and faint light pulsed from broken screens. Lyra scavenged through the remains, searching for power cells and water. When she turned around, Sira was staring at a screen that had flickered to life. It showed distorted footage, soldiers marching, banners of the Human Alliance, and propaganda that had filled the airwaves during the war. Monsters, a voice echoed from the old recording. The Zareth must never be trusted. They are not like us. Sira's eyes filled with tears again. Lyra quickly shut the screen off. Don't listen to that. They didn't know what they were doing. Sira looked up. You, human. Lyra nodded slowly. Yes. The child hesitated. Human? Kill mother. The words hit Lyra like a knife. She couldn't speak. Her hands began to shake and her throat closed. I didn't. Sira looked away. The silence between them grew heavy, filled with things neither could understand. Lyra took a deep breath. Not all humans are the same, Sira. I swear to you, I'll never hurt you. The child studied her for a long moment, then nodded faintly. Her eyes dimmed, and she curled up beside the cold metal wall, falling into a restless sleep. Lyra sat awake for hours, staring at the faint glow that pulsed beneath the child's skin. She knew what that glow meant. The Zareth were born with a symbiotic energy field. If it faded completely, they died. By morning, the glow had weakened. Lyra panicked. She searched through her medical pack, but nothing worked. The child was slipping away. She remembered an old rumor. Zareth energy could be stabilized by neural contact, a dangerous and forbidden act. The link could kill a human if the balance failed. She looked down at Sira. The child's breathing was shallow. Lyra whispered, "You saved me once." "It's my turn." She pressed her palm gently to the child's chest. Light flared. Memories surged into her mind. Oceans of crystal, floating cities, laughter that wasn't hers. She saw the child's mother, a tall, radiant Zareth woman, hiding Sira in a pod as fire consumed the sky. Lyra gasped and almost pulled away, but the child's hand held hers with desperate strength. Then, warmth. A heartbeat. 2 lives pulsing in rhythm. When the light faded, Lyra fell to the floor, breathless. Sira opened her eyes. The glow had returned, brighter than before. "Lyra," the child whispered. "You, part of me now," Lyra smiled weakly. "Seems like it." But before she could speak again, a distant rumble echoed through the ruins. Engines, heavy and fast, Alliance patrols. Lyra's heart sank. They had been tracked. She grabbed her pack and pulled Sira close. "We have to go, now." The sky outside burned with descending lights. Dozens of search drones sliced through the mist, their scanners sweeping the streets. Sira clung to her hand, trembling. "They come for me." Lyra looked down at her. "No, they'll have to go through me first." They ran into the dawn. Hearts pounding, 2 fugitives, 1 human, 1 alien, bound by something deeper than blood. For the first time since the war began, Lyra felt alive. And she would fight the entire galaxy to keep that feeling. They ran until the horizon bled into dust. The morning light cut through the mist, revealing the broken skeletons of old transport bridges. The hum of engines behind them grew louder, drones circling, scanning, closing in. Lyra's lungs burned. Her boots slipped on shattered glass as she dragged Sira into a narrow service tunnel. The walls still pulsed faintly with old power lines, glowing blue under the grime. They stopped to breathe. Lyra pressed her back against the cold metal. "We'll rest for a minute," she said, though her voice shook with exhaustion. Sira stared at her, frightened. "They find us." "Not if we keep moving," Lyra replied. The sound of boots echoed from above. Soldiers. Lyra pressed a finger to her lips, then took out a small pulse grenade from her belt. She'd sworn never to use weapons again, but promises meant nothing now. Through the grated ceiling, shadows passed, armored, faceless, efficient. The Alliance. Her own people. Lyra whispered. "They're scanning for life signs." "Hold your breath." Sira closed her eyes and went still. Lyra did the same. A beam of light swept over the tunnel, humming softly, then moved on. The soldiers' voices faded with the wind. Lyra exhaled slowly. "We're not safe here anymore." Hours passed as they followed the tunnel deeper into the underbelly of the ruins. At last, they reached an opening, a forgotten maintenance bay. Rusted ships lined the hangar, their names long erased. Lyra approached one of them. It was small but intact. A courier shuttle. Maybe it still had power. She climbed inside, coughing through the dust. The control panel flickered to life. "Come on," she muttered. "Just once, don't let me down." The engines groaned, then roared faintly. Power returned. Syrah's face lit up. "We go home?" Lyra looked at her and smiled sadly. "I don't know where home is anymore, but we'll find a place where no one will hurt you." The shuttle lifted slowly, shaking off decades of sleep. They rose above the ruins, into the pale sky streaked with fire trails from orbiting ships. As they broke through the clouds, Lyra caught sight of the earth below, a wounded world, fractured by its own hatred. She felt a sting in her chest. Syrah reached for her hand. "You sad?" Lyra nodded. "I helped destroy this. I thought I was protecting my people, but all I did was kill theirs." Syrah tilted her head. "Now, you protect me." Lyra smiled faintly. "Yes, I do." An alarm blared through the cockpit. Multiple signals, interceptors, closing fast. She cursed under her breath and pushed the throttle. The shuttle surged forward, leaving trails of vapor across the clouds. But the Alliance ships were faster. One locked on. Missile warning. Lyra turned sharply, the shuttle rattling violently. "Hold on, Syrah!" The missile streaked past, exploding nearby. Fire blinded them. Lyra fought to regain control. "Power to shields!" she shouted, slamming a switch. The systems barely responded. The shuttle dipped, alarm screaming. Another missile. This one hit. The blast tore through the side of the ship. Smoke filled the cockpit. Lyra coughed, pulling Syrah into her arms as sparks rained around them. The ship was going down. Through the cracked window, she saw a stretch of wilderness below, endless forest glowing faintly blue under alien spores. She gritted her teeth. "We're not dying today." She pulled the emergency lever. The escape pod detached just before the shuttle burst into flames. They plummeted through the clouds, spinning violently until the pod hit the ground hard, breaking through branches and soil. Silence. Lyra opened her eyes. Her head throbbed. She unstrapped Syrah, who was crying softly but alive. They had landed in an ancient forest, a place untouched by war. Giant luminescent trees reached into the sky, their roots pulsing with light. Syrah looked around, eyes wide. "Beautiful." Lyra nodded, still catching her breath. "Yeah, it is." She knelt beside her, brushing dust from her face. "We'll rest here for a while. They won't find us easily under all this interference." Syrah looked up at her, then touched her chest again, the place where their connection had once glowed. "You hurt." Lyra hesitated, then looked down. A faint burn spread across her ribs, where their link had flared. The energy had left a mark, a symbol glowing faintly, shaped like the Zareth crest of life. She forced a smile. "It's nothing." But deep down, she knew what it meant. The connection wasn't fading, it was growing. Syrah laid her small hand over it. "We same now." Lyra took her hand gently. "Maybe we always were." The wind rustled through the glowing trees, carrying the distant sound of thunder, not from the sky, but from the engines above. They weren't alone yet. But this time, Lyra wasn't running only to survive. She was running to protect something worth dying for. Days passed beneath the blue canopy of the forest. The air shimmered faintly, filled with spores that glowed like tiny stars. Lyra and Syrah built a small camp near the roots of a fallen tree, hidden from the sky. At night, the forest sang, deep, haunting tones from unseen creatures. Lyra found herself speaking less, listening more. The world here was alive in ways she had forgotten. Syrah recovered quickly. Her laughter, soft and melodic, began to echo between the trees. Sometimes she would touch the plants, and they would bloom brighter, their light rippling outward. Lyra watched her in silence. It was hard to believe that this child, hunted, broken, alien, carried something so pure. But the glow on Lyra's chest never stopped. Every night it pulsed stronger, and with it came dreams, visions not her own. She saw the Zereth homeworld, now destroyed, a mother's voice whispering her child's name, a prophecy of unity that had never come to pass. She woke each time in a cold sweat, her heart racing. One morning, she found Sira drawing shapes in the dirt, circles, lines, constellations. Lyra asked, "What are those?" Sira pointed upward. "Map. Sky shows the way." Lyra frowned. "To where?" Sira smiled. "Home, but not mine." "Yours?" Lyra stared at her, confused. "Earth is gone, Sira. What's left isn't a home." Sira shook her head. "Not Earth, heart." Before Lyra could ask more, a faint hum filled the air. She froze. Sira's eyes widened. Ships. Lyra grabbed her blaster and crouched low, scanning the treetops. Light beams sliced through the canopy, drones sweeping the forest again. The Alliance hadn't given up. "Hide," Lyra whispered. She pushed Sira into a hollow beneath the roots and covered the entrance with leaves. "Don't make a sound." The child nodded, trembling. Lyra stepped out, blaster ready. 3 drones descended, their scanners glowing red. She fired once, a clean shot that hit the first. It fell, burning, but the others turned immediately, targeting her. Bolts of energy lit up the forest. Lyra ran between trees, rolling behind a trunk as bark exploded around her. She fired again, taking down the second. The third one circled higher, signaling for reinforcements. She aimed, but her blaster jammed. "Damn it," she muttered. The drone's siren pierced the air. Then, suddenly, light exploded from the ground. Sira had stepped out from her hiding place, eyes glowing like suns. The energy around her pulsed violently, the same golden light that lived in her veins. She raised her small hands, and the forest itself responded. Vines whipped upward, wrapping around the drone, crushing it midair. It fell in a burst of sparks. Silence returned. Lyra ran to her. "Sira, what did you just—" The girl collapsed into her arms, breathing weakly. The light dimmed. Lyra held her tightly. "You can't use that again, do you hear me? It's killing you." Sira opened her eyes just enough to whisper, "They find us anyway." Lyra looked to the sky. The drone's signal had gone out before it fell. They had minutes, maybe less, before the soldiers arrived. She lifted Sira onto her back and started running through the forest, following the map the girl had drawn earlier. Branches whipped at her face, her breath coming in shallow bursts. Finally, they broke through the trees, and what lay ahead stopped her cold. A ship. Ancient, half-buried, covered in vines, but still intact. The markings were neither human nor Zereth. Older, something from before their war. Sira lifted her head weakly. "This is the way." Lyra carried her inside. The air smelled of dust and time. The consoles glowed faintly as they entered, responding to Sira's presence. The symbols on the walls pulsed to life, forming spirals of golden light. Sira reached out and touched one of the panels. "It knows you," Lyra said, breathless. The child looked up at her. "It knows both." The ship's systems roared awake. The floor trembled. Lyra stumbled, holding on to the railing as the engines hummed beneath her feet. Outside, the forest lit up with descending shuttles, Alliance troops landing fast. Lyra turned to Sira. "We can't fight them all." Sira shook her head. "No fight, we show." The child placed her glowing hand on Lyra's chest, over the mark that bound them. The light between them grew until it filled the room. Lyra gasped as her mind flooded with memories again, not just Sira's, but humanity's too. She saw wars, betrayals, love, sacrifice. She saw how both species had been manipulated by something older, something that fed on their hate. Tears streamed down her face. "We were never enemies," she whispered. Sira nodded softly. "Now they see." The ship's core brightened, sending a column of golden light into the sky. Every scanner, every drone, every human ship saw it. Not as a weapon, but as a beacon, a message. Then, silence. Lyra fell to her knees, holding Sira close as the energy faded. "What did you do?" Sira smiled faintly. "I showed them truth. No more lies." Her small body went still, her glow fading like a dying star. Lyra's breath caught. "Sira, no." She held her close, shaking, whispering her name again and again. But the child was gone. Outside, the soldiers stopped advancing. The light still lingered above the trees, painting the forest in gold. Some of the men lowered their weapons, staring in awe. Lyra laid Sira down gently and looked toward the sky. The war wasn't over. But for the first time, someone had seen what it had cost. And somewhere in that endless forest, under the silent shimmer of alien light, Lyra swore she would make Sira's sacrifice mean something. She stood, covered in dirt and tears, staring at the horizon where dawn began to rise. A new world was waiting. One that might finally remember what mercy looked like. She tried to convince herself that it was just a child from some unknown colony, but something inside her screamed otherwise. The pattern of the veins, the glow, in her eyes, and the way her body seemed to emit a faint light of its own, none of it was human. The woman knelt slowly, careful not to startle her. "Hey, it's okay," she murmured, her voice soft against the distant hum of the wind. "I won't hurt you." The girl hesitated, watching her with wide, trembling eyes. When she finally took a step forward, a sound escaped her lips, something between a word and a sob. "Sira," the woman swallowed hard. "Is that your name?" The girl just blinked, then pointed toward the horizon, where a metallic structure stood in ruins amid the plain. The woman understood. That was where the answers were. She lifted the child gently into her arms and began walking toward the crumbling building. As they moved through the landscape, the girl seemed to feel every change in the air. She touched the corroded walls, the glowing plants, murmuring soft sounds as if speaking to the world itself. It was as though she was connected to everything, and somehow, to the woman too. Inside the abandoned base, symbols were carved into the walls, inscriptions that looked alive, shifting slowly as if they were breathing. The woman approached, and suddenly one of the symbols lit up, projecting a hologram into the air. It showed a group of human scientists recording data. Project Aurora, Phase 9, interaction with hybrid species. Her heart froze. "Hybrids," she whispered, looking down at the girl. It all made sense. She wasn't just an alien, she was part human. Then, a metallic sound echoed down the corridor. The woman instinctively shielded the child, hiding behind a column. Patrol drones floated through the ruins, their red lights sweeping the floor. They were still operational, decades after the facility's abandonment. That meant only one thing: this place was still under military surveillance. If they were spotted, they'd be erased. Time slowed. She waited, holding her breath, listening to the hum of the drones as they passed. When the last one drifted into another hallway, she finally exhaled and turned to the girl, only to find her holding a small pendant that hung around her own neck. It was a piece of old metal, engraved with one marking, E29. "Where did you find that?" The woman whispered, startled. The girl pointed back to the hologram, where the same number was blinking in the corner of the screen. It was the experiment ID, her experiment. A cold shock ran through her body. Fragments of memory flashed in her mind. Sterile white labs, metallic restraints, voices shouting, light cutting through smoke. She was part of Project Aurora, too. She wasn't just a human who found an alien child. She was one of the first hybrids ever created, one who had forgotten who she was. The memories came in waves, fleeing through flames. The alarms, the order to terminate, the child's cry fading in the distance. And now, that same child was in front of her. The girl's eyes widened with sudden understanding. "Mother?" she whispered. The word hit her like a blade wrapped in light. Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't remember." Before she could say more, the base lights flickered on. Sirens wailed. The drones had detected movement. She grabbed the girl's hand and ran through the narrow corridors. The walls shook, the air filled with sparks and smoke, and the hologram still glowed faintly behind them, projecting the face of an older man, the commander of the project. Subject E29. You were declared lost 20 years ago. Return immediately. The experiment must be completed, she shouted back through gritted teeth. Never again! They burst through the main door into the night air. The drones followed, firing bright beams of light that scorched the ground. One struck her shoulder, and she fell to her knees. The girl turned back, her eyes now glowing like twin stars. A low hum filled the air. A translucent barrier formed around them, a shimmering sphere of energy that pulsed and breathed. The incoming shots dissolved against it like mist. The woman looked at her, wide-eyed and trembling. What are you doing? The child's tears streamed down her face, but her arms stayed lifted. The barrier expanded, spiraling upward. A pulse of energy erupted, and the drones exploded in a flash of light. Silence. Dust settled. The night wind returned, soft and cold. The woman looked at her, exhausted. You saved us? The girl stepped closer and pressed her forehead gently against hers, and in that single touch, every memory came flooding back. The lab, the escape, the promise she made to the baby she couldn't save. Now, on that forgotten world, they were together again. The woman smiled through tears, the glow of dawn reflecting in her eyes. I found you, and I'll never let them take you again. The girl smiled back, her tiny hand gripping the woman's tightly. Two suns began to rise over the ruins, gold and lilac washing over the silent city. As they walked into the horizon, the hologram still blinked faintly behind them, repeating its cold command into the empty air. But for the first time, she didn't feel fear. She felt hope.